The young and the restless spoilers, a fractured alliance. Jordan Wilde paced the small room furiously, her sharp heels clicking against the cold floor. She had thought herself smarter than this, more capable, more discreet. But Ian Ward's recklessness had put everything at risk. Showing yourself in public? Letting Nick Newman see you, she hissed, her voice trembling with anger. What kind of idiotic plan was that? Ian leaned casually against the wall, his smug grin unwavering. Relax, Jordan, he replied, his tone dripping with mockery. Sometimes, you need to shake things up to keep people guessing. Shake things up? Jordan shot back, her voice rising. You've painted a target on both our backs. They're watching you now, Ian. And if they dig deep enough, they'll find me too. Ian shrugged nonchalantly, clearly unbothered. If you're scared, then run. But don't forget, you're just as implicated as I am. Jordan's face hardened. I'm not scared, she lied, but I'm not sticking around to watch you burn everything down. I have my own priorities. Jordan's true motive. Jordan had never cared for Ian's grandiose schemes of revenge. Her involvement with him was born out of convenience, not loyalty. Her goal was clear: remove Claire, the young woman she believed had no place with the Newmans. Jordan saw Claire as a pawn, someone who deserved better than to be entangled in the drama and dysfunction of the Newman family. Now, with Ian drawing attention to their movements, Jordan knew she had to act fast. If she waited any longer, the Newmans would tighten their grip, making Claire's removal impossible. Under the cover of darkness, Jordan slipped into the Newman estate, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent weeks studying the family's routines, knowing precisely when the house would be vulnerable. Claire's room was her destination. The abduction. Claire was fast asleep when Jordan entered. Her breathing was steady, her face serene. For a moment, Jordan hesitated. The young woman reminded her of someone she had lost long ago, and guilt flickered briefly in her mind. But she pushed the thought away. This is for her own good, Jordan told herself. With careful movements, she lifted Claire from the bed, muffling any sound with a blanket. Claire stirred slightly but didn't wake. Jordan carried her out of the house and into the waiting pickup truck, where she had prepared a small space to keep Claire secure. As the truck roared to life, Jordan whispered, "I'll take you somewhere safe. Somewhere far from here." The escape begins. Jordan drove through the winding roads of Genoa City, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror every few seconds. The streets were quiet, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed like a potential pursuer, every distant light a sign of danger. Her mind raced. She had a destination in mind, a remote cabin far from Genoa City, where no one would think to look. Once there, she would keep Claire hidden until she figured out her next move. But Jordan underestimated the reach of the Newman family. The Newmans discover the truth back at the estate. Victoria Newman was the first to notice something was wrong. She found Claire's bed empty and immediately raised the alarm. Within moments, Nick and the rest of the family were searching the grounds, their fear palpable. "Claire's gone," Victoria said, her voice shaking. "Someone took her." Nick's mind went to one person, Ian Ward. "It has to be him," he said, his voice filled with rage. "He's escalating. First Sharon, now Claire." But Victoria wasn't so sure. "What about Jordan? She's been acting strange ever since this whole thing started." Nick nodded grimly. "Either way, we have to find her before it's too late." Ian's realization. Meanwhile, Ian Ward had returned to his hideout, only to find it empty. Jordan's belongings were gone, and so was the burner phone they used to communicate. A dark scowl crossed his face. "Running off, are we?" Ian muttered to himself. "Typical. You were never built for the long game." Ian's mind began piecing things together. If Jordan was gone and Claire was missing, it wasn't hard to figure out what had happened. "Good luck, Jordan," he sneered. "But don't think for a second that I won't drag you down with me if I'm caught." The chase. Nick quickly mobilized a search team, enlisting private investigators and using every resource at his disposal. Tracking Jordan wasn't easy. She had planned this well, but she had left behind subtle clues in her haste. A surveillance camera on a nearby street captured the truck leaving the estate, giving Nick a lead to follow. As the hours ticked by, the tension grew. Claire's safety was paramount, but there was also the question of Jordan's motives. Was she acting alone, or was Ian pulling her strings? A moment of reckoning as Jordan neared the cabin. She thought she was in the clear. The truck bounced along the dirt road, and the distant sound of crickets filled the air. But as she pulled into the clearing, headlights appeared behind her. Panic surged through her. She had been found. Nick stepped out of his car, his expression a mix of anger and relief. "It's over, Jordan," he said firmly. "Let her go." Jordan's hands trembled as she climbed out of the truck. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I was trying to save her. She doesn't belong with you." "She belongs with her family," Nick shot back. "You don't get to decide that." For a moment, Jordan seemed to consider fighting back, but she knew it was futile. Slowly, she opened the truck's door, revealing Claire, unharmed but confused. Nick rushed forward, pulling her into his arms. The fallout: Jordan was taken into custody, her motives laid bare. While her intentions for Claire might have been misguided rather than malicious, her alliance with Ian Ward left her with few defenders. Ian, now fully exposed, became the target of a full-scale manhunt. His recklessness had finally caught up with him, and the walls were closing in. The road ahead with Claire safe, the Newmans turned their focus back to Sharon, determined to uncover Ian's endgame. The battle wasn't over, but they had won this round. And as Jordan sat in a holding cell, she couldn't help but wonder if her decision to break free from Ian had saved her, or doomed her. This chapter sets the stage for a final showdown with Ian Ward while exploring Jordan's conflicted motives, leaving readers wondering whether justice or vengeance will prevail. Jordan's breaking point: Jordan Wilde slammed the door of her hideout, her chest heaving with frustration and fear. Her partnership with Ian Ward had been a calculated risk from the beginning, but now, it felt like a death sentence. Ian's erratic behavior, his reckless exposure, and his complete disregard for anyone but himself had pushed her to her limits. For Jordan, it was no longer about loyalty or even shared goals, it was about survival. Ian Ward's history of betrayal was infamous, and she knew better than to think she'd be an exception. If it meant saving his own skin, Ian wouldn't hesitate to sell her out as the mastermind behind Sharon's abduction or any of his other crimes. The thought of prison made her stomach churn. She wasn't going to let Ian drag her down with him. Ian Ward, the self-serving hero Ian, had always been a master manipulator, using alliances as tools to further his own agenda. To him, Jordan was just another pawn in a long line of disposable allies. He had no intention of sharing any victory, or fallout, with her. In his mind, he was already crafting a narrative that painted himself as the savior. Turn her in, he mused to himself, pacing his own hideout. Expose her for Sharon's abduction. Play the hero, win public sympathy. It's perfect. Jordan's sudden disappearance didn't faze him. If anything, it was an opportunity. Her absence would make it easier to pin the blame entirely on her. He could even spin it to make himself look like the victim of her schemes, an innocent man caught in the crossfire. Jordan's escape. Jordan wasn't naive. She knew Ian's mind worked like a chessboard, with everyone around him as potential sacrifices. She had to move quickly to stay ahead of him. She packed her belongings hastily, leaving behind anything that could tie her to Ian's crimes. Her primary fear wasn't just Ian's betrayal, it was the Newman family. Their relentless pursuit of Sharon's whereabouts and their determination to protect Claire made them formidable adversaries. If they caught her, there would be no negotiation, no mercy. As Jordan drove through the outskirts of Genoa City, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was being watched. Every set of headlights behind her felt like a threat, every unfamiliar face a potential enemy. She had to disappear completely if she wanted to survive. Claire's growing fear. Meanwhile, Claire was living in a state of heightened anxiety. Jordan's fixation on her had been evident for months, and now that the alliance with Ian was crumbling, Claire knew she might become Jordan's sole target. The idea of being taken from her family haunted her dreams. Sitting in the Newman ranch, surrounded by the family that had grown to love and protect her, Claire tried to stay strong. But the fear was palpable. "What if she comes for me?" she whispered to Victoria Newman, her voice trembling. Victoria placed a reassuring hand on Claire's shoulder. "We won't let her get to you," she said firmly. "You're safe here. Nick, Victor, and the rest of us will make sure of it." But Claire wasn't so sure. Deep down, she knew that hiding wouldn't solve the problem. Sooner or later, she would have to face Jordan, to confront the woman who believed she was doing the right thing by taking her away. A town on edge, the situation had thrown Genoa City into chaos. Ian Ward's name was on everyone's lips, and the police had intensified their efforts to locate him and Jordan. Rumors swirled about Sharon's whereabouts, and tensions ran high within the Newman family. Nick Newman, fueled by rage and determination, vowed to bring both Ian and Jordan to justice. "They've torn apart too many lives," he said during a family meeting. "This ends now." Victor Newman, ever the patriarch, reminded his family of the stakes. "Ian Ward is a snake," he said gravely. "He'll turn on anyone to save himself. We need to stay sharp." Jordan's inner conflict driving through the desolate backroads, Jordan couldn't escape the weight of her own guilt. For all her bravado, she knew she had crossed lines she couldn't uncross. Taking Claire, even with what she thought were noble intentions, had been a mistake. And Sharon, well, Sharon's predicament haunted her the most. Jordan clenched the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she muttered to herself. "I just wanted to help Claire. I didn't sign up for this chaos." But deep down, she knew she had willingly aligned herself with Ian, knowing full well what he was capable of. Her regret was too little, too late. Claire's resolve at the Newman ranch. Claire sat by the fireplace, staring into the flames. Her fear hadn't subsided, but something new had taken root: determination. "She's not going to scare me forever," Claire said aloud, her voice steady. Faith, sitting beside her, offered a supportive smile. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "Jordan doesn't control you. We're here for you." Claire nodded, feeling a spark of courage. If Jordan ever did come for her, she wouldn't cower. She would stand her ground and fight for the family she had grown to love. The unraveling as the walls began to close in on Ian and Jordan, it was clear that their alliance was beyond repair. Ian continued to weave his web of lies, preparing to paint himself as the misunderstood victim, while Jordan desperately tried to escape the consequences of her actions. But with the Newman family's relentless pursuit and the growing resolve of those they targeted, it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. For Claire, Sharon, and everyone else caught in Ian and Jordan's chaos, the battle was far from over. But one thing was certain: justice was coming.